I'm Dr. Theo Spirakis from Bexley Dental, and I can give you back your smile. With the All-on-4 dental procedure, I can put an end to broken and missing teeth and uncomfortable dentures. Book your free All-on-4 consultation now at bexleydental.com.au.
The Informed Investor, thanks to Century 21. Smarter, bolder, faster. Go to century21.com.au.
Lucky we are. We're joined each Monday night by the chairman of Century 21 Australasia, Charles Tarbey. Evening to you.
Good evening, Steve.
Those auction results, the clearance rates keep going back, starting to drop a little bit, aren't they?
They have been interesting, actually. Obviously, we're watching them closely. They were 49.8% across the nation this time last year. It was just over 64%. But interestingly enough, Steve, Sydney came in at 52.2%, which is probably not too bad considering Melbourne, with 1,088 auctions, came in at 47.5%. So it seems as though the Melbourne market has been hit harder than the actual Sydney market when you look at pricing from that perspective.
1,088 auctions in Melbourne. Melbourne's always auctioned more property than Sydney, though, hasn't it?
Yes, of course. But I always found too that that's a very good place to judge it. And they have been in the 60s and 70s for a long time. I haven't seen them below 50. So that 47.5% for Melbourne is pretty much a new record.
Do you put this down to people being unable to access bank finance?
That's been a really difficult issue. We're a little bit concerned that the Royal Commission into Banking has gone deeper and further than one would expect. I mean, I don't think they expected it to impact on the housing market as much as it has. And there are areas now across certain capital cities where banks are increasing the amount of deposit you need. So that is an indication. And I know from my personal point of view, dealing with banks has changed quite significantly. I'm watching how rents are starting to tighten, vacancy rates are starting to tighten because of it. So people who can't buy now, they're out there, they're renting. And the vacancy rates, as an example, in Melbourne have been incredibly low for a long, long time. And this week they were down to 0.4% vacancy rate, whereas in Perth, which is in the 10s and 11s, going back 4, 5, 6 months ago, is down to 5.76%.
So people are not moving; they're just staying if they're renting.
Yeah, which means the rents, which should have realistically gone backwards with the extra amount of stock we've had coming onto the market with various projects coming out of the ground, rents have continued to increase. So I have to say that it's not having the impact that one would have expected. It's certainly having an impact on the real estate industry instead of on the banking industry as much.
Talking of renters, New South Wales, there was a story yesterday, I think it was in the Sun Herald, suggesting that New South Wales government's about to make a change. So this will be good news for people who are renters and who move from time to time, that you're going to be able to move your existing bond from property to property rather than have to wait to get it back. So that's a good change because people have to come up with a month's rent as the bond while they've still got the previous bond sitting there not being sent back to them for a few weeks.
This is, of course, if the bond can be released. In other words, if there isn't damage or claims. But you're absolutely right. This is going to impact on a few new industries or organisations that have come out of the last boom we've been in. And these are industries where they are funding people, where they're lending people a bond. So there's a number of businesses being spawned in the last few years from this need to have a bond without having to come up with the cash. You've been able to borrow it. So that's probably going to impact on those businesses. In fact, they may struggle to even stay in business if this moves as smoothly as the government wants it to.
Can't imagine what the interest you'd be paying if you're borrowing a bond.
Look, it's a horrible thought. I felt a bit uncomfortable with the program when I saw it out there because I thought, gee, if people are going to borrow a bond, sometimes when you borrow that money, Steve, you spend it. And
if I was a landlord and I knew that the person was coming to rent my property had to borrow the bond because they didn't have enough money to come up with the cash, I'd be a little worried that they're going to be able to continue to pay the rent.
Yeah, you're going to be. I guess that's probably not information a landlord would ever find out. But it has been an industry that has come out probably in the last 2 years more than I've ever seen it. So I don't know how they're going to be impacted by that. But it is a good idea if people can move the money around, because realistically, if there's no claim on the bond, it's their money. So why should they have to come up with two bonds?
Gee, if you've got tight rental markets like that, and we're not even close yet to Bill Shorten being elected, which looks like he will be, with his negative gearing changes, imagine what's going to happen when that happens.
Steve, these are all the things. You know, the real estate market itself isn't that bad. There's still plenty of people out there inquiring. The inquiry levels are not low, and the interest in real estate isn't low. It's people's ability to get funds, which is one of the issues. And then if you look at the negative gearing aspect, I mean, if they put that out in addition to what's happening right now, I don't know what in heaven's name is going to happen to investors or even people who are wanting to sell a property. If you want to sell a property, an investor's not going to come and buy your property because they're not going to get any negative gearing benefits unless it's a new property. And so all of a sudden, if you're thinking about selling your home, there's a certain part of the marketplace you can't actually offer it to. And if you are an investor and buy a new home, when you go to sell that new home, it's no longer a new home. The person who's coming along to buy it can't get negative gearing. So it's going to be an incredibly difficult process to manage. And I think that at the same time, it's going to disadvantage a significant number of sellers. So that message needs to get out there to people who own property, because they are going to be impacted quite significantly if the Labor government introduce...
Well, the Liberal Party need to start making that argument. What would you say to someone if their property's passed in at auction? What should they do?
Look, a property actually sells at one of three stages, either before, on the day, or after. To me, when a property's passed in, it's giving you an indication that you're not meeting the marketplace. And we say this all the time, and at the risk of repeating myself, Steve, there are only two types of markets we're ever in. One where we get a buyer up to meet what they think is a vendor's ridiculously high price, and that's called a boom. And the other where we get the vendor down to meet what they think is the purchaser's ridiculously low offer, and that's called real estate. And that's what we're in 90% of the time.
Perfectly put, Charles, as usual. Couldn't have put it better myself. Well done. Thank you. I'll talk to you next week.
You.
Charles Tarby there. And, I mean, he makes an extremely good point about what's going to happen post the election if we do get to this point of negative gearing being dumped. I just hate to think what's going to happen to rents right around the country. It's going to be ugly.
Since the beginning, it's been about the design. I'm Peter Campbell, the owner of Clarendon Homes. With our newest home, the Mossman, it's about design and premium luxury. At 56 squares, grand proportions. It's a home made for entertaining. State-of-the-art kitchen, huge butler's pantry and wine cellar. I'm really proud of the Mossman, and I'd love for you to see it.
The new Mossman. See it at Clarendon Homes, Park Lee. clarendon.com.au.